Have you ever wondered if being alone in old age could be the key to true freedom and happiness? Aging often brings with it the question, is it better to be alone, or should I be with someone? Today, we'll shatter the myths surrounding relationships in later years and explore why being single might just be the most liberating choice you can make. By the end of this video, you'll gain a completely new perspective on love, companionship, and independence that could reshape your future. You'll learn how society's view of romantic relationships might be a trap, and how embracing your freedom can lead to a life of fulfillment and self-discovery. So stick with us until the end, and I promise you'll see the value in living life on your terms, free from societal pressures. If this message resonates with you, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more life-changing insights. Let's dive in and explore what true freedom looks like. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you like this video, you can help me continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know, so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. As we age, we often find ourselves confronting a significant question. Is it better to remain alone, or is it essential to have someone by your side? It's a question that many people grapple with as they grow older, and it carries deep emotional and philosophical implications. But let me share something with you that society rarely discusses, a truth that can transform your perspective. Being single in later years could very well be the key to unlocking true freedom and happiness. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the myths surrounding relationships as we age, uncover the unexpected reasons why embracing solitude might be your greatest blessing, and explore how to redefine what love and companionship truly mean to you. By the time we're done, I promise you'll have a completely new outlook on the future that will leave you empowered and inspired. If this message resonates with you, don't hesitate to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and make sure to subscribe for more life-changing perspectives. Together, let's discover the truth behind relationships and personal fulfillment. Romantic love has been elevated to a near-sacred status in our society, often treated as the ultimate goal for every individual. It's as though those who choose to be alone are seen as incomplete or unsuccessful. They made us believe that to be with someone is to achieve success, and that a life without a partner is a life lacking meaning. However, all you need to do is look closely at the world around you to see that this ideal is nothing more than a myth, a construct that many blindly follow, despite the truth being clear to see. It's almost unbelievable that people still don't realize this fundamental truth. Humans were born free, we live free, and we die free. Everything else, every relationship, every societal expectation, is simply circumstantial, an illusion created by external pressures. When you take a step back and observe, it becomes glaringly obvious how many people are trapped in relationships they no longer desire. They continue to pretend to be happy because admitting that they might be better off alone would mean acknowledging failure in the eyes of society. Relationships often form out of sheer inertia, a habit that has been ingrained in us since childhood. This is just what we do, people think. The most tragic part of this is that society, rather than questioning this norm, actually celebrates it, pushing people to continue in emotional partnerships that aren't fulfilling. The love they sell us is not love at all. It's a cage, decorated with illusions. It doesn't elevate you, it holds you down. Sure, at the beginning, it's all sparks and fireworks, but when those flames die down, all that remains is the dull smoke of routine, disguised as commitment. And why? To avoid being labeled as lonely? To evade facing the discomfort of being truly alone? It's a high price to pay for avoiding a confrontation with oneself and the reality that you are, ultimately, alone in this world. The story often starts with seduction, a process that has evolved into an almost absurd performance. What was once a genuine quest for connection has now devolved into a charade. It's as though we're playing a game of ego-driven theatrics, where the goal is not genuine companionship, but a superficial show for attention. We've moved away from seeking deep, authentic connections and instead entered into a social game where the winner is the one who lies the best, who performs the best, and who curates the best online persona. And we call this romance. It's fascinating how many relationships begin on the foundation of these falsehoods. We create an image of ourselves that's often far from reality, trying to impress from the very first moment. We throw out jokes, we present our most flattering selves, and then, when things eventually fall apart, we wonder why. What did we expect from a relationship built on lies, when we were part of the deception from the very beginning? If you believe that love later in life will fix everything, let me offer you a sobering truth. Love doesn't fix anything. It complicates matters even further. What we call romantic love is, in reality, a socially accepted form of possession. We've been taught that love is about need, and that to be happy, you must have someone else by your side. But here's the problem. If you need someone to be happy, then you've already lost. You've lost touch with yourself, and you've given away your power. The real issue is not being alone. It's about living with someone who makes you feel emptier, more disconnected from your true self than you would feel on your own. As you'll come to understand, this is the true tragedy. People often say that you'll be happy once you find your other half. But isn't that a deeply degrading concept? It implies that you came into this world incomplete, as if you were born with some essential part missing, and that you need someone else to make you whole. I'd much rather stay without the so-called other half. Thank you. Society pressures people into relationships with the same force and persistence it uses to push us into buying life insurance. And if you don't have a partner, they treat you like you're some sort of anomaly, like there's something wrong with you. They label you a social failure. But here's the absurdity. The real absurdity lies not in being alone, but in seeking companionship purely out of fear of judgment from others. Romantic love has stopped being a genuine choice and has morphed into an artificial need. You don't love because you want to. You love because society has taught you that you should. True love, however, isn't born from the fear of being alone. It emerges from the freedom of being at peace with yourself. The real reason many people stay in empty relationships is because they are terrified of loneliness. But here's the irony. Most couples, despite being physically together, are more alone in their relationships than they would be if they were single. Sartre once said, "If you feel lonely when you're with yourself, you're in bad company." This is the deception we live with. Couples don't come together because they genuinely want to be with each other. They come together because they cannot bear the thought of being alone. In these relationships, emotional dependency replaces genuine affection. Surveillance replaces trust. If you find yourself needing to know where your partner is at every moment, then you don't have a relationship. You have an emotional prison. Infidelity becomes the ghost that haunts every interaction, and it's understandable why. Society is broken, and fidelity has become the exception rather than the norm. We spend our lives checking phones, glancing over our shoulders, and living in a constant state of paranoia that our partner might be cheating. This is what we've turned love into, a suffocating, fear-driven dynamic. What kind of relationship is it, when the underlying fear is that your partner will grow bored or look for someone else? If you find yourself checking your partner's phone, there's an unspoken truth that no one is willing to confront. The relationship is already over. It's just that no one dares to say it aloud, because it's easier to pretend everything is fine. But here's the hardest pill to swallow. When you're caught in this cycle of suspicion, even if your partner hasn't done anything wrong, the damage is already done. Especially if they are attractive or active on social media, you become trapped in an endless loop of doubt. It's not even about infidelity anymore. The real issue is that infidelity feels inevitable in our society. We live in a world where temptation is practically a commodity, and technology has made deception as quick and accessible as a swipe on a screen. Yet, we continue to cling to the illusion of monogamy, pretending that we're still in an era where knights rode horses to rescue damsels in distress. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. If cheating is so common, or if we've all been victims of it at some point, why do we continue to believe in the myth of eternal fidelity? Why is this notion still held up as the ultimate standard? Let's be honest. Love based on control is a lie. Faithfulness that is imposed out of obligation is a form of torture, and it's something no one should ever accept. When sex, one of life's greatest pleasures, becomes a battleground, it's not about desire anymore. It's about the fear of breaking some unspoken pact. But what kind of life is that? What kind of relationship can you build on fear and repression? Nature itself teaches us a different lesson. Look at animals. None of them chain themselves to a single partner for life. And if they do, they still interact with others of their species, enjoying companionship without guilt or fear. They have sex, they experience pleasure, and they do so without the burden of wondering if they're betraying someone. Humans, on the other hand, are the only creatures who turn sex into a routine obligation, forced to share it with the same person, whether they feel like it or not, and we call that commitment. But is it? Is that freedom? Is that the kind of life we're meant to live? Shouldn't sex be as free as food, a basic, natural pleasure we can enjoy without guilt or restriction? Why should we let outdated societal norms dictate how we experience something as fundamental as our desires? People who engage in casual relationships, always with mutual consent, are often seen as living authentically, in tune with their nature. But this sexual freedom, this choice to engage in pleasure without strings attached, is a silent threat to those who are emotionally shackled. If you choose to experience intimacy freely, you're labeled as someone who doesn't care, as someone cold or detached. And for women, this judgment is even harsher, more degrading. The real immorality, though, is not in the freedom to explore pleasure. It's in the hypocrisy of pretending purity while secretly fantasizing about cheating on the person you're with. So, what's stopping us from living authentically? It's the very same societal norms that even the people who preach them don't follow. It's the hypocrisy of those who champion faithfulness but secretly wish to break every rule they impose on others. I'm not advocating for reckless sexual freedom, because that often leads to obsession and a sort of mental imbalance. But I do believe that there's nothing wrong with enjoying sex when you feel like it and believe it's right for you. We've been taught to view sex outside of a partnership as sinful, but what's truly sinful is forcing ourselves into relationships we don't truly want or need, simply because society says so. The requirement for mandatory fidelity is perhaps the most absurd prison we've built for ourselves. And here lies the great hypocrisy. Those who preach the most about monogamy often are the ones struggling the most with their instincts. They're burdened by the chains they refuse to break free from, even though they know deep down they're suffocating. The truth is simple. Forced monogamy creates tension, not love. Human desire is as natural as the need to breathe, and suppressing it doesn't make it go away. The more you try to repress what's natural, the more it will consume you. Just think back to the video I made about this topic. It's a warning about the dangers of denying our own needs. If you choose to share your life with someone, do so because you share a vision, a common project, and a mutual understanding. Not because you believe you need them to complete you. Love becomes fragile when it's based on dependency, when one person's happiness hinges entirely on the other. Relationships should not be about sacrifice or losing yourself for someone else. True love is about connection, mutual respect, and shared goals. And the problem isn't necessarily having a partner. It's believing that marriage or lifelong commitment is mandatory just because society says it's the normal thing to do. That belief, that pressure to conform, is a recipe for unhappiness. It's amazing that some people still believe that following these societal norms will lead to emotional success. These are often the same people who blindly trust governments and institutions to protect their rights, despite clear evidence to the contrary. True freedom begins the moment you stop playing the game that society has set up for couples. And if reading this makes you uncomfortable, maybe it's because, deep down, you know I'm right. People often claim that fidelity is the greatest act of love, but what they fail to acknowledge is that fidelity, in many cases, is rooted in fear. Fear of losing the other person, fear of boredom, fear that they will find someone else who offers what you can't give them. Modern love, for many, is nothing more than a performance of commitment, masking a deep well of insecurity. How can you call something love if it requires constant surveillance? We're living in a culture where it's normal to check phones, interpret silences, question motives, and manipulate situations to feel secure. When distrust becomes the foundation of a relationship, passion dies. All that remains is routine, staying together because it's what's expected, or because a child has been conceived. That's not love. That's inertia. Love should never be viewed as an exclusive contract, bound by rules and obligations. Instead, it should be regarded as a respect agreement, where each person involved recognizes that freedom is an inherent part of life and is not a threat to the relationship. True freedom is essential to the growth of individuals, and once we embrace it, we begin to understand that relationships transform, not because they are chaotic or untethered, but because desire is no longer suppressed or considered taboo. This is a shift that doesn't align with societal expectations, of course. Society has conditioned us to fear the potential loss of a partner so intensely that many end up suffocating their loved ones with excessive control. The belief that control will guarantee fidelity is a dangerous myth. In reality, control only guarantees resentment, and resentment inevitably chips away at the foundation of a relationship. The need for constant validation and affection from a partner, for many, is like a coin that inevitably loses value over time. When true desire, emotional or physical, resurfaces, most people either deny it or hide it, leading to internal conflict. What might have started as an open, honest relationship gradually turns into a slow-burning lie, suffocating the connection that was once full of vitality. True love does not require walls or imprisonment. If you must confine someone to keep them by your side, you've already lost them in spirit. The bird that feels the weight of a closed cage will long to return to freedom, not the confinement of the bars that trap it. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. We live in a society that exalts relationships because singlehood threatens the control structures that maintain societal order. A person who walks alone is independent, unafraid of loss, and unafraid to live outside of the narrow confines of prescribed roles. This autonomy is seen as a real threat by a society that insists on people fitting into the molds of traditional partnerships. The truth is that hoes who choose to walk alone represent the freedom to exist authentically, unencumbered by the expectations placed upon them by others. And this freedom, to some, is more dangerous than anything. Throughout our lives, we've been taught that being alone is a failure, something that must be corrected. We're conditioned to believe that life without a partner is incomplete, an unfinished project waiting for resolution. But in reality, being single is not an accident. It is a conscious choice, one that requires courage, and one that few are willing to make. Ironically, those who criticize the single life are often the ones trapped in relationships that no longer serve them, relationships they drag through life like burdens they're too afraid to put down. The idea that coupledom should be the default is a social construct that limits our growth and perpetuates unhealthy dynamics. The true natural state of being human is freedom. Freedom to be oneself, regardless of societal expectations. Animals remind us of this in their behaviors. Wolves, for instance, hunt in packs but sleep alone. Lions live in groups but form no lasting emotional contracts. They operate with a profound understanding of independence, which we often neglect. Only humans have managed to turn love into a perpetual pact, an unending cycle that denies the most basic right of all, the right to exist without attachment. Emma Goldman once said, "The worst kind of slavery is the one where the slave loves their chains." And this is precisely how we live today. Loving relationships because they provide a sense of security, even though deep down, we know that security is nothing more than a well-crafted prison. The coupled dynamic, in many ways, acts as a net, a web of promises that seem to offer stability but ultimately lead to emotional instability. The most absurd part is that singlehood is often seen as a problem, especially when it comes to women, who are pressured to find a partner as soon as possible before their time runs out. When someone remains single for an extended period, society tends to pity them, as if they're missing out on some vital aspect of life. What they fail to realize is that the single person is not suffering. They stand outside, observing as others drown in relationships that have long since expired, watching couples who live in bitterness, trapped in cycles of reproach and obligation. Sometimes, I even take comfort in seeing how those same couples criticize my single life, even though they are bound by chains they refuse to acknowledge. The societal pressure to have a partner doesn't stem from love, it comes from fear. The single person represents a threat to the status quo. If one person can live without a partner, it forces others to question why they can't. The single person becomes living proof that love is not mandatory, and that, for some, freedom is more fulfilling than the security that a partner may offer. This is a deeply uncomfortable reality for a society obsessed with romanticism. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Being single is not the absence of love, it is an abundance of respect for oneself. It's a conscious choice, one that does not involve negotiating your freedom, one that doesn't trade your time or your body for fleeting illusions of connection. It's a refusal to enter into the circus of seduction and possession, the endless game where everyone pretends indifference while scrambling for attention. This dynamic is absurd, schizophrenic and paranoid in its very nature. Choosing singleness means stepping away from that farce. It means no longer pretending to be something you're not. There's nothing to prove to anyone. The single person doesn't need to seduce anyone. They simply live. They don't compete for attention. They exist in their own space. Oscar Wilde famously said, To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. If a relationship does not contribute to growth and self-expansion, then it isn't love, it's simply an anchor. True love should complement your life, not be the defining feature of it. Singleness allows relationships to exist freely, without contracts, emotional debts, and the expectation of ownership or possession. Casual relationships, when they are based on mutual respect and honesty, are not threats to freedom. They are expressions of it. They are authentic, spontaneous, and rooted in a place of true connection. And that is the real purpose of love. Singleness, when embraced in its purest and most profound form, becomes an act of deep, unwavering sincerity and honesty with oneself and the world. It is the conscious and deliberate decision to no longer deceive oneself with the false promises of everlasting, unattainable love. It is a powerful acceptance of the fact that love is not about possession, control, or clinging to another person, but rather, it is about the freedom to love unconditionally without the need for ownership. It is the ability to enjoy life and experiences without attaching rigid promises or expectations, knowing that true connection does not require sacrifice of oneself. Singleness is not a mere phase or temporary state. It is a destination, a place where you come to realize your worth and strength, free from the pressures of outside expectations. This destination is called freedom, and it's a place where only a few ever truly arrive, because most people become lost in relationships that should have never begun. Relationships that distract them from their true self, from their growth and well-being. At its core, being single is neither a punishment nor a flaw. It is, in fact, a profound opportunity. It is a chance to live fully, explore every aspect of who you are, and discover what genuinely makes you happy, without the weight of imposed commitments or the unrealistic expectations that often come with the complexities of romantic entanglements. Life is not about conforming to society's narrow standards or seeking approval from others. It is about taking ownership of your journey, creating your narrative, and deciding for yourself what brings you peace and fulfillment. If that path involves walking alone for a time, then let it be a walk that is rich with freedom, self-discovery, personal growth, and the deepening of self-love. Reflect for a moment on the choices you've made in your life, and on the path that lies ahead. Consider the messages you've internalized about love, relationships, and your sense of worth. Remember this. The true measure of your happiness is not found in the presence or absence of a partner, but in your ability to be authentic, to honor yourself, and to live a life that aligns with your inner truth. The key is not the status of being single or in a relationship. It is being true to yourself, finding peace within, and walking a path that nourishes your spirit. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've explored some deep and meaningful insights together. Now, I want to hear from you. What have you learned so far from today's message? Is there something that stood out to you, something that touched your heart or sparked a new perspective? Please, share in the comments below one thing you've learned today that you'll bring into practice in your life moving forward. I'd love to hear how these messages resonate with you. And remember, if you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss a message of encouragement, guidance, and divine love. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time.